And we are live, GM family. It is a cold day outside. It is a cold market, but when we get to party with all of you, we're going to have a nice warm party that goes till, let's hope, sunset. Let's hope we can keep this broadcast going till at least sunset. Wouldn't that be that'd be a whole lot of fun. I'll give this just a minute, make sure everything is streaming properly on YouTube, make sure all of you can hear me. But so much has happened in the past week, so much going to be happening in the upcoming week. Need to get all of your thoughts on a bunch of pressing issues. Need to get all of your thoughts on a bunch of issues that are not so pressing. Need to hear just what you are curious about, because there's been a million projects shipping and launching stuff in the past week in DeFi. And we really wanted to write a full article for every single thing, and it was just not possible. Just way too much happening. So we are going to be relying on all of you to tell us what you'd like to talk about. Otherwise, you're just going to have to hear me drone on about whatever I think is interesting. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So this was my attempt at trying to get everything together in article form. And I was calling this a dream of spring because it seemed appropriate. We've been in DeFi winter so long. And we keep hoping that DeFi spring is going to come. We're not even hoping for summer just yet. We'd be content with just spring. Is spring too much to ask? Spring would get us at least like some nice flowers and like a hint of better stuff on the horizon. It's also a shout out to the George R.R. Martin final book in his Song of Ice and Fire series, which has been... people were waiting for the next book since before the TV show Game of Thrones even launched. And people kept expecting that he was going to release book number 6 as the show was going along, saying like, oh, he's surely going to get out before the show catches up with the books. And then, of course, at this point, even talking about Game of Thrones is a bit of a boomer reference because... Game of Thrones is not been on air for like several years. It's the most recent TV I watched, though. So, of course, it blew through it. Final season came and went. It's been long off the air. And still, of course, no book. So, much as all of us are hoping for DeFi spring, similarly, in the kind of publishing world, people have been hoping for this final chapter of A Song in Ice and Fire to come. And it's just on the horizon, but never going to come, it doesn't seem like. So it goes. See a couple of you in YouTube, and if you're on YouTube, just give me a shout. Make sure that the audio is working. If not, we'll see what happens. We'll also see if this ends up being the sort of YouTube broadcast that I can save, so people who aren't able to watch it can watch later. Because sometimes it gets a little spicy. We drop a bit too much alpha, and I end up just deleting the entire broadcast. So it's a bonus for anyone who's smart enough to watch the live. Still trying to juggle with the timing. When it's just me, I do 8 a.m. When there's guests joining, I try and defer to their schedule. But 8 a.m. seems like kind of a nice sweet spot because no one on the West Coast has a job, so it's easy for us to like catch it. And I think a lot of people on the West Coast wake up kind of early because of Eastern market hours. On the East Coast, it's like already 11 a.m. It's like midnight or like getting late in Europe, so all the Europeans are drunk, so I can kind of slur my words and they won't care. And then the people who have the toughest is all of our friends in Asia. And of course, there's been that big Chinese narrative. So we want to try and find a time zone that would work for everyone, but no way to do it. So glanced over and looks like markets are dumping even more. So whatever I'm saying is obviously bad for Bitcoin. But so it goes. Not even seeing any comments on YouTube. So I don't know if the audio is coming through, but please do shout out if the audio is coming through. And of course, join. We're in the Discord. Llama parties are best with all of you. We hope that in the next couple of weeks, we will actually have some guests that show up. I've been trying to book guests, and they keep falling through. So it's a lot more fun when we have some guests. But when we do have the guests start to hit, I can guarantee that at least all the Llama party slots in March are already accounted for. And if all the guests hit, they're going to be some real bangers for guests. So we'll have a lot of fun coming up if we do get the Llama Party happening throughout. And in fact, one thing I'm going to ask for all of your tips on is I sort of FOMO'd into ETH Denver. We were talking with some people about doing some curve stuff and the initially, like, the people wanted to do like really big events, and that's just not at all Curve style. Like, we were much more looking for like a few one-on-one chats with some developers. But then, and the kind of, so I decided, I'm not going to go. I was still just getting back from this trip to Asia. Going to be super jet lagged. I figured not really worth it to make the trip. But then, enough people said, "Are you going? Are you going?" So I FOMO'd into ETH Denver at the last minute. So one thing I was hoping is, if there is anyone, especially anyone watching, or anyone that's kind of knowledgeable about Denver, I think it'd be really cool to do a Llama Party live next Friday. It might need to be a little bit later, but the issue is, like, where would we host it and how would it work out? But if we could actually get a live Llama Party where people could just like stop in and join the stream in person, and people who can't can join via Discord, join via YouTube, ask questions that way, I think they'll be banging. The issue I have is I don't think they could like just do it in my hotel room, because hotel Wi-Fi is only so. Most of the events seem like they're evening, so if I try and do like a Llama Party somewhat in the morning, I feel like it might actually work out. So again, kind of throwing that out there to the community to see if there's any interest. All right, no feedback. I don't even know if my microphone is working, so I will just continue talking to myself until I hear evidence that I see the viewers are going up though, so that's a good thing. YouTube, YouTube, I never know if that's accurate or not. But if you are on YouTube, feel free to join us in the Discord. Let's get into it. There's so much that's happened this past week. And first up, wanted to shout out Hubert here. Hubert, former investment banker, currently StakeDAO. Very helpfully did my job for me. People always ask, what should I do with Curve? And I think the thing that's interesting about Curve is that Curve, of course, is highly inflationary. And if you are new to tokenomics, there's not really such a thing as inflation necessarily. There's just dilution of existing token holders. By that, I mean, if there's only 1 million Curve in existence and I own all 1 million, and then I print 1 million more and I give you that 1 million, then I have reduced my purchasing power, my control over the Curve ecosystem, because I've been diluted out of it. Now, I don't think that high inflation is necessarily a problem. I think the biggest issue with inflation is, and this goes for both fiat and crypto economies, but the biggest issue with inflation is if the inflation schedule is unpredictable, because if you know the inflation schedule, you can hedge against it and you can plan for it. If the inflation schedule, like in America, is unpredictable, then you don't know if next year you're going to suffer from 1% inflation or 50% inflation. So the Curve inflation schedule is very aggressive, but it's also very predictable, which means if you have a Curve token, you know that if you're not staking it and trying to earn more Curve, then you're falling behind. And who knows, maybe the price will go up enough that even holding raw Curve will be fine, but you're much better off staking it. And I don't think everyone knows this because there's a lot of unstaked Curve still out there. So if you have Curve, hey, IF says YouTube is working fine. So great to hear. Once guests hopefully come in, and this is not just a party of one, then we'll make sure you can hear the guests as well. So what do you do with your Curve? Where do you stake it? Because there've been a bunch of different staking options, and they've all had different fates. So, for example, Convex Curve was people's favorite for a while, but then Convex Curve suffered a bit of a depeg. So it's like 10% off peg, which is not too bad, and it's the kind of thing you can plan for. In fact, you could treat it as a bonus if you're depositing Curve for Convex Curve and taking advantage of it. But it wasn't everyone's cup of tea. Now, that being said, since Convex Curve re-released their option to allow you to claim your yields in either governance tokens or in dollars, Convex Curve got a lot more fun. It's still pretty good yield, but there's still better yields out there. So Hubert did a fantastic job of summarizing all the yields on Curve. And the best one is take StakeDAO's Curve, which by itself is already, as you can see, third here on this list, just ever so slightly trailing behind Y-Curve. But then if you take that StakeDAO Curve and hand it over to Aladdin DAO for automatic compounding, it's just the most killer possible combination of all of it. You're getting 57% yield. So pretty good. Pretty good. So I actually haven't yet tried Aladdin StakeDAO Curve. I will try it, but I keep procrastinating because gas fees have been terrible. But if anyone's tried Aladdin StakeDAO Curve and can issue a testimonial there, it's been pretty phenomenal. So all this is just to kind of point out that there's a lot of great places that you can stick your curve around the flywheel, and it's one of the things that Curve has done really good, and I'm starting to see some of the other kind of Curve competitors also building up this composability, which is great. It's just what we want to see within DeFi. One of the cool things about all of this is that there's all these protocols that touch on Curve. And for anyone just getting here, I have so many to cover, so I might not be able to get to all of this. I'm planning on having this Llama Party go till sunset, but we'll see. However, if you have any protocols you'd like me to discuss, feel free to shout it out in either the Discord chat here or in the YouTube chat. So first up has to be Ave, because Ave is obviously huge. Curve and Ave are currently in a battle to see who can release their stablecoin last. So it's like one of those reverse marathons where you try and be the slowest. Ave keeps announcing a delay, then Curve announces a delay. I do happen to know, and I will talk more about Curve USD maybe later when I decide if I'm going to keep this broadcast up or make it private. So we'll see if any alpha ends up slipping. But I'll talk about the updates on Curve USD towards the end, just in case I accidentally reveal something that I'm not supposed to. So one of the cool things about Ave is that I mean, there's a million cool things about Ave. It's really defined this concept of like, what do you do for a lending protocol? They've really nailed it with V3. They've deployed across a number of chains. It's a fantastic spot to keep idle assets. And they've got the formula down to an art. So when Curve got attacked, when Ave got attacked through the Curve token by Avi, who is now I believe in prison for market manipulation of Bango. But when he was running his stunt on Ave, that was on Ave V2, mind you. Ave V3 is much more resilient to such attacks. And even just generally, because of its operations, Ave has acquired a stack of 650,000 Curve, and they need to do something with the stash. And they are debating right now, but it looks like they might be going with StakeDAO Curve, although it's still an active governance proposal for them. Now, if you have been following Curve long enough, you know that there's actually some talk that Ave might release their own Curve wrapper at some point in the past. I haven't seen much discussion on that lately, so I think that might just be going with staking through StakeDAO Curve, but pretty exciting if they actually do end up doing with that. So it's exciting news. The StakeDAO team, which we'll talk about a little bit later, they really have been killing it. They partnered with Aladdin DAO for this ASDCRV, the top yielding destination for Curve. They've been partnering with a lot of protocols, and mostly, like, as we'll get to it when we get there. Hi, Longline, says VS. Hello, Longline to you as well. StakeDAO has been crushing it. Their vote market is just something gorgeous. Maybe we'll take a look. Aladdin DAO, as mentioned, like they're killing it. There's been a lot of there's been a few other leverage protocols which have been launching, and I think that Clever shows in a lot of ways how to launch a leverage protocol, because they did a really fantastic job of it. They got people super excited. And if you're not familiar, the Curve site actually has a Clever ETH pool. That Clever ETH pool has been doing very, very good in terms of Clev emissions. It got turned off for just a little bit, but now it's back. So if anyone is interested in aping, I know gas is really high. But that Clev, here it is. Clev ETH is currently yielding very, very juicy rewards of 78% boosted, as well as all the Clev tokens, Clev CVX and Clev USD are also getting some pretty healthy rewards. Now, what's interesting is usually very, very high rewards like this don't always last. But for the case of Clev, they have been fairly consistent for several weeks. So it's not the worst place in the world if you got like a Clev airdrop to park your money into that Clev ETH pool. Not financial advice. Of course, nothing in this is financial advice. You certainly would not want to take financial advice from me. I'm a left bell curve developer, so I know very little about finance. I know very little about making money. I have lost about double digits percentage of my net worth in the past year. So anyone who is taking financial advice from me will probably also become very poor. So not financial advice, talk to your financial advisor, but you could do worse in terms of yields. In fact, while I have it open, I will just go ahead and take a look at all the, let's see what the, do a quick look at all the curve pools, because after Thursday, the new yields come in, and sometimes people don't always notice where there is some new yields to be earned. And there was quite a few good ones. So StakeDAO's FXS is in there. FXS, very bullish on that token. So the capability of getting the StakeDAO's been proven pretty good at keeping pegs. So it's probably, again, not financial advice, but lower risk, and 130% CRV. And there's already half a million in the pool. So it's not too small. Okay, network hiccup. The IBGBP and IBCHF, I'm pretty sure that these are the Iron Bank pools, which were being used by Andre Cronje's fixed Forex. Now, Andre Cronje's maybe reappeared lately. It's tough to say. But if the rumors that he's back are true, then it might explain why all of a sudden they are trying to revive some interest in this Great British Pound and Swiss franc pools. I've never heard of any issues with the pegs from any of them. So again, not financial advice, but maybe it's relatively safe places, and over 100% curve yield, pretty good. Then, to be honest, I'm not sure why more people are not jumping into this curve Gear ETH pool. I covered Gear a few weeks ago, but people are pretty bullish on the Gear protocol. And in addition to the 91% curve rewards, you can get 35% Gear rewards. So maybe not the dumbest place. The risk there would be if you think Gear is going to tank relative to ETH, then you can't really make any money there. Then Clev ETH comes in at 78%. I profiled Metronome Finance earlier this week. Their Metronome USD is still earning very good yield, so it doesn't look like my article moved markets much on that. I saw a couple people write some negative stuff about Vesper, which is their sister project, in my Twitter feed. So there may be some issues around it. So check my Twitter feed. I think I retweeted that, so you can have a bit more information on it. But I haven't heard any information about a DPEG there. So maybe if you just want to stay in dollars, might not be the worst gamble for short-term money. Stargate USDC, Stargate token. This pool always yields really well. I think, don't know exactly why that is, but they have 25 million in there, and it's still yielding 63%. It's also interesting to sit in it because it's an extremely volatile pool. So most of the pools, most of the crypto tokens are paired against ETH, where they show less volatility. But because this is paired against the dollar, where most crypto tokens are very volatile against the dollar, it means that this pool tends to also earn pretty good trading fees. So if you're bullish on Stargate and bearish on USDC, then might not be the worst place to park some USDC. The ETH Matic pool, I don't know why more people aren't in that. I'm extremely bullish on Matic. The Matic token is everything you see on Polygon, they are nailing it in terms of development and business development. A ton of smart people there. Their business development team is going to successfully onboard. We say, where's crypto adoption coming from? It's coming to Matic. So I don't know why you wouldn't speculate on this one if you're looking for pretty good bets. Paladin ETH, they've been doing fantastic work. I feel like I owe them more coverage because they've had a lot of developments in their ecosystem lately. So that's 60%. The JPEG ETH protocol, I like what they're doing at JPEG, but I think these pools generally tend to be better to ape into if you're doing it from the point of view of someone who is staking your NFTs on JPEG, and then taking the ETH or dollars that you get there and then staking in this pool. So I wouldn't really recommend necessarily going in just with raw ETH. I know that their PUSD had an issue with DPEG, so make of that what you will. Reserve, they are very excited because they just passed a audit. So they're launching some new smart contracts, and the fact they got through audit's pretty good. So I don't know what their token is doing, but I really like the protocol. Again, we see Metronome, another Korean won pool for Iron Bank, which is very useful for the fixed forex. LDO ETH. This one has been just tearing up the volume charts. If you have any Lido, I don't know why you're not at least parking at this pool as a hedge. A lot of people got Lido through staking their Ethereum step. This pool has been doing very, very good volume. Tokamak, I'm not sure what's going on with Tokamak. I have not heard much in the way of updates from them lately. Y-Curve is... we talked about the staked curve options. Y-Curve is ever so slightly the juiciest, and they've been doing a good job of keeping their peg, which is bullish for Yearn coming up. As we're going to talk about, Yearn is also getting in the staked Ether wars. Badger, I wrote a big article on Badger's new eBTC yesterday. So this one is actually pretty exciting because Badger knows Bitcoin. Like, I think anyone who follows DeFi on Ethereum knows that there's no bigger experts, and they've had to deal with so much crap, and they still keep pulling through. And what they're doing with this new wrapped Bitcoin should be worth a look to anybody, because like it or not, Bitcoin is the #1 asset by market cap, and you could argue about ETH flipping it, but the bona fides of Bitcoin. I still think it's got a little bit of room to run. I talked about my reasons for why I think this in the article recently. But just the national adoption happening with Bitcoin. So right now it's just El Salvador, but if we start to see maybe a half dozen countries adopt Bitcoin over the next few years, I don't think they're adopting Ethereum. They're going to be adopting Bitcoin, and the fact that that's going to just firmly enshrine cryptocurrencies broadly into the broader economic ecosystem. So I think that institutions get onboarded through Polygon, nations get onboarded through Bitcoin, Ethereum gets onboarded via everyone building apps that roll up to Ethereum. So all of the biggest coins have a path for adoption, but I just say don't discount Bitcoin. And then the concept for Badger DAO's eBTC is really interesting. So essentially, it's a synthetic asset, very similar to SBTC, or even DAI, where you put up one form of collateral and use it to mint the Badger new eBTC. In this case, the E stands for Ethereum. So they're using Ethereum and specifically LSDs to mint the Badger eBTC. So the idea is that there's not going to be any fees, and Badger is just going to make money from the staked Ethereum yield. So you give up your Ethereum staking yield, which is on the order of let's say 4%, but you use it to mint Bitcoin. If you think Bitcoin's going to run against Ethereum, it might not be the worst bet in the world. And then no fees to transact it, no fees to interact with the protocol. Badger gets all the money. Well, the reason this is also really interesting is in the same way that we talked about most of these tokens being paired against Ethereum, we see that most Bitcoin and Ethereum run together very closely. I ran a correlation analysis earlier this week on the FIDI the FIDI indicator, and one of the things that popped out of it is that there's 98% correlation between Bitcoin and Ethereum prices. And even if you're just looking at price movement, it's 91% correlation. These two are joined at the hip, so it's not going to be that volatile. So if you're, for example, minting Bitcoin against dollars, the volatility is going to mean a ton of liquidations. It's not very stable. It's not super attractive. But minting Bitcoin from Ethereum, not so crazy. So between that and between Threshold Networks TBTC launching a very, very decentralized bridge between Bitcoin and Ethereum, might mean that we see this kind of second chapter of Bitcoin on Ethereum DeFi starting to spring up. So really exciting stuff. Badger, of course, is going to stand to benefit majorly if Bitcoin does make its way to make its way to DeFi. So this is where you might be interested in this Badger WBTC pool. FXS ETH, no brainer. I don't know why you wouldn't want to be in that. JPEG PETH, where I was not as bullish on just staking your JPEG PETH. if you have JPEG, I think putting it here is a pretty good bet. Fracx BP is an interesting one as well, because Olympus DAO, I got a little heat when I said that we should make Curve try crypto the reserve asset. A lot of the Ohmies came up to tell me that there's already a reserve asset and it's Ohm. Olympus DAO's Ohm is trying to be the DeFi reserve asset. And I pushed back on this a little bit because I'm a fan of Ohm. I own some Ohm. I think I have it staked in this pool. But I don't think that the narrative of Ohm as a DeFi reserve asset is a terribly good one. And this is just because the market has spoken, as far as I'm concerned. The market says that they want a reserve asset that is as close to stablecoins as possible. And we've had stablecoins serve as the reserve asset. It might be the case that Gary Gensler is going to declare all of them to be securities, in which case it's going to push stablecoins underground. And if we want a DeFi reserve asset, we're going to want something that's close to stablecoins, because that's just what people consider to be what they're looking for in a reserve asset, or let's say like an asset that is stablecoin like properties. Ohm is not that. Like Ohm, if anything, is the other direction. Like Ohm has been extremely volatile. It was crashing before the rest of the market crashed. It started rising before the rest of the market started to recover. So while it's like those are really great properties to have in some sort of asset, I consider it like a DeFi mutual fund. It's phenomenal for that. But if you're looking to just kind of take all of your gains and try and lock them in somewhere, locking them into Ohm would not be my first choice. Stablecoins would be the place you would probably look, but if stablecoins are illegal, try cryptos. What I still would argue is a very good reserve asset because it's more stable than Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin and Ethereum are more stable than alts. So it sort of sits like stablecoins, try crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, alts. It's as close as you can get to a stablecoin without being a stablecoin. It's only 33% back. So I still would press the argument that Ohm, while a super useful and great asset, I would not count on it to be a very good bet for specifically a reserve asset. If you want to use it as a speculative asset for like DeFi in general, then I think Ohm is like where you want to look. This Rocketpool, big volume since it launched on Curve, big rewards. If you're looking for a place to park your staked ETH, this would probably be one of my first picks right now. Of course, this yield's going to die down, but you're going to get trading fees. A lot of people got a lot of Rocketpool ETH, want to trade it to ETH, and you're going to get good curve emissions. The Rocketpool team is fantastic. I'm sure if I just mentioned Rocketpool like 5 times here, they're going to actually show up and join me in this Llama Party. So it's not going to be like a solo style Llama Party. It'll be like we'll have actual guests come and talk. Because their community development is also just that good. When people talk about Rocketpool, Jasper the Friendly Ghost is right there to help you out. In fact, Rocketpool was really great to me when I started staking, even though my staking has been very difficult. I decided not to use Rocketpool or anything. I was solo staking. I had some questions, and a Rocketpool dev came and helped me out, which was awesome. I have a lot of respect for their team. Also, this pool is just so much better than that wrapped step to Rocketpool ETH pool they used to have, because that was not getting picked up by aggregators. This one is directly picked up by aggregators, and at least on mainnet, especially like the emergence of like DeFi Llama's DEX aggregator, most of the routes through Curve are finally getting discovered, which means a lot more trading volume going through Curve, which means good VECRV fees, which means the flywheel spins to life. Curve ETH, Convex Curve, 2 great places to park Curve. Here, if you are Convex Curve, if you're speculating on Curve, Curve ETH, if you think that maybe Curve is overvalued and you'd like to get some ETH. Here we see, I'm not sure why more Europors don't do this. IBEUR USDC gives you 50-50 hedge between USDC and Euro essentially, and you're earning 30% yield on top of it. Would be my choice. TETH would be very interesting. Threshold Network recently launched, as I mentioned, their bridge, so they're making big moves. This would be a good place to look. StakeDAO Curve, Powered Metapool. We're starting to get back to like 20% yield, which is maybe not exciting to anyone. Try Crypto is around I like putting my assets in Try Crypto. I see it as a reserve asset. It's getting you 20% yield. Why wouldn't you? And a lot of good stuff as you go down. We start to get to the pure dollar coin yields now. I would still not touch USDD, although it's proven resilient. You could argue USDD is a little bit of a China play because Justin Sun is bragging about his involvement in Hong Kong. MIM is probably my choice of where I would park dollars because MIM has survived so much at this point. They're still around. And on top of that, you're getting 11% curve yield, so that's pretty good. StakeDAO token, Fracx BP. This one would be an interesting one to look at because there's going to be people needing more StakeDAO token, given how many people are kind of starting to build against SD curve. So StakeDAO Wi-Fi, also an interesting one. 3-year Euro pool, another good one for you, our Euro poor friends. I like Psi also, XAI, as a dollar coin pool. CB ETH is also another good place, I think, if you have ETH lying around. Same with SETH. I was really quite surprised to see Synthetics ETH is yielding so well, but that's a good one. BLUSD, sadly, the chicken bonds phenomenon is a bit stagnant. Give it like 6 months, maybe. It'll probably pick up again. We'll see. Badger, again, if you want to speculate in Badger and EBTC. Metronome dollar at 7%. LUSD. Yeah, let's jump back to my article rather than just going through these pools because I want to make sure I get through everything here because there have been so many cool updates. What do you all think of Archimedes? Like to get some chat going here because I'm like the least interesting human being alive. Hearing all of your thoughts in the chat would be really interesting. Archimedes, I feel like every now and then, like just following the flywheel, I wouldn't say I have alpha, but there's just so much information floating around the space that just publicizing some information that exists within the Curve ecosystem and bringing it to a wider audience kind of serves as alpha. I feel like I've given subscribers to my newsletter really good value over the past 2 months because if you were reading my newsletter, you caught the China narrative about a month before anyone else. Howie was the guest there, and Howie basically said everything that people figured out like last week about Hong Kong. I was actually in Hong Kong for much of this and can corroborate pretty much everything that he said. Hong Kong is in fact launching this. This is going to be the gateway to mainland China. Being able to like adopt China is somewhat softening. There is still the good point that China might just be doing all this so they can ban crypto yet again and cause yet another market nuke. But the China phenomenon seems a bit real. So anyone who subscribed to the newsletter was at least a month ahead on that. And then the Archimedes DeFi, I've been following them for a couple months now because the co-founding team went to the same school as me. They reached out to me. They're a big fan of Curve and everything, and they just were chatting because they were like really interested in getting a gauge and incentivizing it and doing it the proper way. So IF does not know what Archimedes is. They reached out. They are this another leverage protocol. Let me just pop open the article real quick as we talk through what they're doing. Specifically, they're leveraging stablecoin yield, and they're doing it for the OUSD. But they're allowing you to basically take that, like Clever, get that yield now, get more of it, and it just sits there in the background and fills up and refills your coffers. So would you rather 1% yield today or 10% yield today? This is the reason that leverage yields are so popular. Of course, you want the 10% yield. You want to get that money up front. So they built a pretty clever platform there. And I wrote an article about them last week before they went live, and a lot of people really liked it. So a lot of people, like, generally speaking, if you see anything with the word leverage in it, degen's going to degen. Degens really like leverage. It's not always the safest thing, the community's obsession with leverage, but it is a real phenomenon. So when you see a leverage token and you're kind of early, I think a lot of people saw that and picked up some ARCH token, and it kind of went wild. It did really, really well. So I'd like to think that people who read my newsletter also got like a little bit of a heads up on this Archimedes project, because it's like I sent the article, then as they got closer to launch, it mooned and people got really excited. And by the way, if you are interested in getting some Arch token, one of the best ways to do it would be this LVUSD pool that they launched. It's pure dollar pool. So the risk would be, of course, there a lot of risks, but the LVUSD maybe it depegs or something. If it doesn't, though, like you're earning 43% Arch rewards, so that's not the worst place to be sitting. Some people have been asking me, though, if they think Arch has already run up too much, if it's too late. I'm the wrong person to ask, because like I'm such a maximalist on Curve, cryptocurrencies more broadly. Like I'm perma bullish on everything. I think all these tokens, even the real dog tokens, are going to go up. So I would advise people to consult your financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. Here's another good thread from Crypto Lynn on Archimedes if you're interested. Good stuff, good stuff. I'll, of course, have to talk about Fracx. The Fracx Flywheel DeFi team covers them a lot better than I do, so follow them for Fracx news. But at least wanted to like zoom in on a couple of cool announcements from Fracx. They're launching VE-FPIS. So FPIS is the, you can think of as like the governance token, the kind of volatile crypto token that underlies FPI, which is their Fracx price index. So Fracx price index is the inflation adjusted stablecoin. And what's cool about this is, it's like a few weeks ago that one big like TradFi person, I think like Charlie Munger or something, I don't remember what, like one of these TradFi dinosaurs was like, well, crypto would be good if it could create an inflation-based token. And it's like, well, Sam did that a year ago, so you're kind of behind, and I can't believe normies look up to these people for financial advice. But still consult them for financial advice, not me, because this is not financial advice. So FPIS is the in the same way that Fracx is able to stay stable and it leans on the FXS Fracx shares, underlying it a bit to basically say like if it goes too high or goes too low, then it's able to like buy and sell to stabilize the price. That's how the FPI token works. Is it's got this more volatile FPIS token to pseudo algorithmically back it, and when the price goes too high or too low, it will buy off or sell off reserves. And now if you want to speculate on the success of FPI, you can buy the FPIS token. The VE-FPIS would be the staking for it. So you see what happens with VE tokenomics for things. Oftentimes VE tokens do pretty good, and sure enough, we get to see it VE-FPIS. Then the other interesting thing is that Fracx itself is moving towards 100% collateralization, which is really a minor adjustment. It was at 98% or something like that, and then the DAO voted just to kick it to 100% to be safest. And there's a lot of people talking about like Fracx is capitulating or something like that, or Fracx is like going Fed. And Fracx is in part going Fed, which we'll talk about in just a second. But DeFi Dave from that Flywheel team kind of corrected the record on it and says that like a lot of the journalism on this is just really bad. Fracx is doing it because it's safest in the near future. It's most capital efficient. Fracx could go to 98% if it needed to. Just given the current market conditions, this sort of suits it best. And by the way, if you're interested in more Fracx information, there was a really good podcast with Sam like a week ago or so, I think with Capital might have been where it's from, but if you look around, it's easy to find. And Sam had a really good conversation about everything they're up to at Fracx. And one of the cool things, which I was just alluding to, is that Fracx is pursuing this Fed master account. And you might be asking, why is this? But one thing that Sam pointed out, which I think is true, is that it's not going to be possible for any stablecoin to amass significant size without going through the US government. Like Tether is like a good example. Tether is size at this point. It's considered kind of almost systemically important because there's billions of dollars wrapped up in Tether, and they do not exist independent of the U.S. government. They still work with the U.S. government. There's kind of push-pull when the U.S. government wants to like blacklist somebody. They will tell Tether, and Tether will decide feds. Specifically on this kind of like Fracx master account. And the concept with it is keep Fracx, the decentralized token, decentralized, algorithmic, etc., but allow the Fracx master account to be one form of collateral you could use to mint Fracx. So essentially, the kind of KYC Fracx would be backing Fracx decentralized. So we'll see. Sam is of course smarter than probably everyone listening to this combined. That being said, I still think that it's a long and like more difficult process to get through the Washington, D.C. bureaucracy than it is to actually build an algorithmic stablecoin or an inflation-adjusted stablecoin years before other people were predicting it. So DeFi is easy compared to Washington, D.C. red tape. Liquidity, big fans of Liquidity, and we do think the LUSD stablecoin remains like this amazing example of a well-architected decentralized stablecoin. And if any stablecoin was going to maybe print billions of dollars worth of TVL without getting a Fed master account, it might be Liquidity, although we'll have to see what happens. Anyway, the exciting thing is Liquidity's USD has been around for so long. They're just getting more integrations. I think the more integrations these things get, the more resilient they become. DAI is a really good example of it. DAI is like not everyone's favorite stablecoin, but it's been around long enough that it plugs into all these protocols, and as a result, like pretty tough to kill. LUSD getting support for Aave v3 markets is really exciting because you could just imagine a lot of people are going to be using this as collateral. MakerDAO has been making some interesting moves. MakerDAO, speaking of DAI, so one of the things they've been doing is they've also been kind of aggressively going with this kind of TradFi route, which if you follow Sam's rubric that stablecoins have to work through the US regulatory system, it's bullish for DAI because I think this is like the second bank that they've been trying to work with in terms of like getting real world assets to back DAI. Now they claim that this is like part one of their like plan. Part two is to then go full decentralized. We'll see. I think they never get to part two. But then there's a little bit of people concerned about this idea that Maker is being approved to borrow DAI. And when people heard this, they immediately thought of Luna because it was like the volatility of Luna that caused the death spiral for UST token, which ruined so many lives. And people see this and they see echoes of it. Barry Fried, though, wrote a really good thread rebutting, not debuting. This is why we need you to join here in the Llama Party. So I just have to just be me talking. Again, if you're following this, join the Discord. Come say hi. It's a party. And I know you probably like watching a party of one person just kind of talk to himself. But yeah, I'm kind of I'm not the most exciting person in the world. So if you pop in that Discord link, it's linked in the YouTube. It'd be great to say hi. Barry Fried kind of rebutted this here. Super interesting thread, and basically saying this is not the same thing as the Luna UST situation, and considers it to be bullish for Maker. We talked about Olympus DAO. Pyrex is one that I feel like I keep giving Redacted and Pyrex a bit of a short shrift in the newsletter. I really, more than anyone else, like owe some coverage to these these teams. So one thing I didn't know is if you visit the I tend to spend a lot of time here on this DAO CVX site, and they have Redacted, but what they don't have is they don't have just due to the methodology and the way they calculate it, they don't include Pyrex on here. And there are some people here in the chat. Hey, Kiro Kus, Chicho, AJ, how y'all doing? Say something. Let me get a drink of water. I'm seeing some emojis flying, but I am not seeing anybody talking. So I guess you're just here for the... my man, thank you for all the content. Kiro Kus, thank you for joining the Llama Party.
Hey, hi, how's it going?
It's going quite good. How are you, sir?
Good. Just finishing work over here.
Oh, that's right. You're in the EU time zone, right?
exactly. Yes.
So what time is it over there? I cannot find a single time zone that will unify America, Asia, and Europe, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's almost 5 p.m. here.
Okay, that's
It's not
pretty
bad.
good.
4 p.m. on a Friday is pretty good. But
That's
yeah,
pretty good.
I couldn't find the Llama Party on Discord, or I couldn't find the right time. Saw it on the email like really late. It's not like I remember that you used to put it like a week or a couple of days before it's Llama Party, but now
Yeah.
it seems like I only saw it today.
Oh, interesting. I have to beef it up for next time. So one thing that's been happening lately is I've been having guests for the Llama Party queued up, and then they flake at the last minute. So because of that, I've been like a little bit reluctant to announce too far in advance, right? Like it would be like kind of embarrassing if I was like, Vitalik Buterin is joining us tomorrow, and then all these people queue up, and then Vitalik doesn't make it, or we have to like change the time at the last minute. Real quick, hey, Archimedes is over on YouTube. That's amazing. If you're on YouTube, just give a shout if you can actually hear Chai Cho GZ, who, because I don't want like, I might need to like play with the audio content because this laptop's kind of weird.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
So,
I'll just assume they can. Chai Cho, am I pronouncing your screen name correctly? Is it
Yeah.
Chai Cho?
Yeah, no, Chicho is fine.
Chicho is fine. What is the your profile picture is gorgeous. It's like an elephant Pepe, diamond Pepe or something.
It's a JPEG Diamond Pepe.
Nice.
Yeah, one of the guys at Dopex did it for a lot of us.
Nice. Are you a user of JPEG?
Yeah, I'm using that JPEG and also Dopex as well. But yeah, JPEG is one of the ones that I have been really fascinated about, not only for the NFT thing, but the way they are playing with the Curve ecosystem and Convex. And sometimes they do these moves, and I don't really understand them, but yeah, it's quite amazing to watch.
Yeah,
they came up first with this what was the theme? They super depeg the curve. They put the what's the name? It's the A factor, right?
The A factor, yeah. Really,
they lower it so much so you wouldn't have like mercs around, and they could offer the yield to customers. So I thought that was quite novel.
It really is.
The way they dump on all the JPEG tokens on all the Convex users, I thought that was also amazing. Yeah, it's fascinating. These guys they really know what they're doing. I haven't seen other team doing it like that. In that, I mean, it's a different way of using. Yeah, curve.
They've got an incredibly bright. They have an incredibly bright team behind them. So they have Tetra Node is one of their kind of advisors, and Bowtied Bull
as well
is another one. Exactly. So it's like some of the biggest brains in all of crypto. So I'm pretty sure that Tetra Node understands Curve really well. So I have to imagine that when I see this kind of like interesting use of the A factor, a lot of the projects that he's a major investor in end up like using Curve and Convex or acquiring Convex, for example. So I think that like that has his fingerprints all over it, in my opinion. I think he's been out like busy skiing lately though, so I don't think he's doing too much within crypto for the past little bit.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about bringing him to the Llama Party to discuss?
He is one of the people who's on my short list for guests. Yes.
Okay, cool. That's cool.
And not to drop too much alpha, but I'm hoping to do it in person with him.
Oh wow, he's gonna dox for you. That's pretty good.
I don't know if he docks. We'd have to do something where it's like I'm on cam, like maybe like I shut my camera off for it. But he has done audio podcasts before, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
I have here some of his podcasts. Yeah.
So he's voice doxed.
Who is Chris Black?
Chris Black is he's very famous. He's self-identified. So this is not me slurring him. He's self-identified as the Greta Thunberg of DeFi, in that he is a fan of scolding different DeFi protocols about their multi-sig security. So I was actually hoping to convince him to do a debate on the subject. I wanted him to, because basically, like, if you know anything about DeFi, like all of these like DeFi protocols are secured by a Gnosis safe. So usually a Gnosis safe, like if you want it to be like super secure, you would have like 4 out of 5 signers have to agree on anything before it can get done. Now, speaking from my experience, I've been on some Gnosis safe teams, and it's really tough work because within DeFi, especially with like a lot of founders like being anonymous, a lot of founders being like working on multiple projects, it means that you might start up a multi-sig with 5 people, and 5 months later, 2 of those people have flaked. One maybe like got into a fight with the team and quit, and so all of a sudden your 4 or 5 multi-sig, you can't actually sign any transactions because some of these people have just disappeared. So there's sort of 2 risks you have to manage if you're dealing with a multi-sig. You have to manage the risk of a very small number of people colluding to steal the assets, and then you have to manage the risk of what happens if like people drop off from the multi-sig because they just flake or they lose interest. So Chris Black's argument is that you have to have at least 50% plus 1 majority. Otherwise, your multi-sig is insecure. And then I would imagine the counter argument to that would be that as a practical matter, especially at the early stage, it's not possible for these protocols to get much done unless you dip below that threshold. So sort of in my experience, like 2 of 4, 2 of 5, 3 of 6, even 2 of 6, like might be sort of like a necessary evil for the early stages, because there's more risk of people flaking than there is risk of people colluding. But that's not something that he would argue is good enough. So he would argue that like Chainlink is secured by a minority multi-sig. And because so much of DeFi is built on Chainlink, then it would take a minority of bad actors, in that case, to destroy all of DeFi. So again, wanted to get him to do a written debate on this in the same vein as this Benny versus DeFi Made Here debate that we did. But he was not willing to do written. He has a lot of writing he needs to do. He wanted it to be a Twitter space. And I didn't really think that would be kind of useful. I think they're like Twitter. What was that?
Anthony Sassano against him on a Twitter space. That would be like...
it would be fire. It would be fire. My issue with doing a Twitter space is that I don't necessarily think it rewards like an honest parsing of the facts. I think that a kind of back and forth like chat where people can present their evidence, other people can like dive into the evidence and debunk it or rebut it. I think that then after the fact, people can go back and read both sides and see which is like which side of the argument they prefer is like a much better way of getting like to the truth. Whereas I think that in a Twitter space, it's sort of going to reward the loudest and most aggressive person. So I think like you might find a really good champion for one so I think that like in a lot of these Twitter spaces, like Chris Black has a very forceful personality and can kind of like just shout people down. But I think that the like other side might have like more subtle and nuanced arguments, which I think it would be like better to explore the subject if it's not just like 2 sides shouting at each other. So that's just my reason for why that's not happened. I'd like to find someone else to actually hold that debate if Chris Black is not interested in doing it. And still hoping that he comes around now that he published his big article. I think the big article he had to work on was TBTC. But I can't find other like decentralization maxis who like can argue the point probably as well as he could. So still trying to get Chris Black on there. Or maybe just get a Llama Party with him. Although I don't know if people want to spend like an hour sitting and reviewing the multi-sig state of all these different protocols or not.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So, all right, just going back to some of the updates, and feel free to interrupt and shout if there's any protocols or burning questions around DeFi you'd like me to discuss. Pyrex, I feel bad. I owe them more attention because they are they've got like the second most convex out of any protocol, which I didn't realize because they don't show up on this DAO CVX leaderboard due to their specific methodology. But the DAO, like, if you look at this other site, which is DeFi Wars, they have 2.7 million Convex tied locked through PXCVX, and it's like slightly different, of course, because it's like not Pyrex do what they want with, but it's just like a testament to how much they are killing these curve wars. So there's been a lot of activity depositing onto Convex, and like I feel like I've been fading a bit too much Pyrex and Butterfly and Redacted and everything, and yeah, maybe same for you as well. Have I spoken about Arch? Yes, I talked already about Archimedes. So they're actually hanging around the YouTube chat if you want to go ask them some questions there. I'd point to the article and to the threads for a quick recap on that. I'm bullish on Archimedes, but that's a bad signal because I'm bullish on everything DeFi. So even like I'm bullish on Shiba, even though I think Shiba's dog plop, just because I'm so bullish, I think all crypto tokens will go up. So me being bullish is not at all a signal. What's my take on CNC? Seems very interesting with CurveUSD launching. Yes, another one that I'm bullish on. They are going to be launching. They just posted this morning another Star Wars meme as like the last call before they launch. So we're gonna finally see when Conic launches, like if this was overhyped, underhyped, etc. My take on Conic is that I think that it's like an important and badly needed piece of the Curve flywheel. I think it's going to be very successful. I would be wary of single-sided liquidity protocols, though, because they have historically ended up rugging users. And I hope that they've solved it, but for my sake, like just to be safe, I would probably sit out for just a little bit, just to make sure that they their operation is kind of like sound. And with all these things, I would only put in money that I can afford to lose. That's not a reflection on their token. That's a reflection on using the protocol itself. As far as their token, like I think all these tokens can, should, and will moon. Don't know which order they're going to be in. So I don't actually own any Conic. I would like to get some stash, but I missed out on the airdrop to my eternal chagrin. Let's see. CurveUSD news I will cover at the very end. I don't think I've said anything in this protocol in this live stream that means that I need to like make it private afterwards. Chicho, is Curve moving to Base? You know, I don't know. If you look at the list of protocols that Base launched with, there was no Curve. So they clearly reached out to a bunch of protocols ahead of time to launch there and did not reach out to Curve. So I don't know if that was a snub or oversight, or if maybe these other protocols like just don't know the rationale, don't know the reason. But as a result, I would not expect Curve to prioritize launching on Base, especially when there's so much else going on Curve. J Aura is launching, also something to keep an eye on. I was not aware of that. That's pretty exciting. And as is AJ points out, anyone got the Zigzag airdrop? I do not believe I got the Zigzag airdrop. So, not knowing much about Zigzag, my default position with airdrops is sell half. You probably would do better with selling all. If you sold 90% to 100% of all airdrops, you'd probably end up ahead. But I'm bullish on these like side coins, like random coins that launch, so I would at least sell half of any airdrop unless I had a really compelling reason not to. Just some quick more notes here. Synthetics launched onto V3 mainnet. It's pretty interesting because SUSD is becoming a pretty core token. It's yielding, SETH is yielding as well as on Curve as any several of the other liquid staking derivatives. And then a lot of the synthetics atomic swaps route through Curve. In fact, route double the volume through Curve because usually it involves making a trade from something to like SUSD, then using SUSD on synthetics to trade to, let's say, synthetics ETH, and then converting from synthetics ETH back to ETH on Curve. So any of these synthetics atomic swaps are touching Curve pools twice, so very bullish for Curve trading volume there. Could I talk on pegs, CVX, FXS specifically? That is a good question because here, let me pull up DeFi Wars, in fact, to review the specifics of the pegs, because there's a lot of different pegs and I can't keep track of all of them, unfortunately, because there are so many. I'll go ahead and start with the curve pegs, because the curve pegs are usually pretty uninteresting. And sure enough, if we look at the past month of curve pegs, we see, yeah, the nice thing is that Yearn released Y curve and that fixed things up. Convex curve released their staking, their V2 of CVX CRV, and that's kind of started to push it back in the right direction, although it doesn't look like it's done much. We've seen though that Y curve and SD curve, since Y curve launched, have been like very resolute at holding those pegs. So great stuff there. Which was it? CVX FXS. Let's look at the CVX FXS peg. Oh, that would not be here anyway, because that'd be FXS peg. So anyway, while I'm here, the convex pegs, stay away from bent. I feel bad because a lot of smart people with bent, but it looks like that one is not one that I would stick around with. The Clev CVX peg is pretty similar mechanic to that CVX CRV, in that the peg does eventually restore over a long enough time horizon based on people kind of depositing and taking advantage of the discount and presuming a repeg kind of when it gets there. But it will take a little bit of time before it gets there. The other is PX CVX. We talked about Pyrex is kind of crushing it. And BVE CVX, both holding very strong. So really good places to stick your convex if you are looking to wrap it. There is Fracx Wars. And here we have over the past week. So StakeDAO FXS has, let me do longer than a week. Let's do a month. So StakeDAO FXS has been kind of one of the biggest success stories. StakeDAO shows a lot of attention to solving these pegs, and they've done a really good job of correcting it. CVX FXS, like all the convex pegs kind of end up in this kind of same territory as like 80 to 90% pegged. So I do think that on a long enough time horizon, these things do equilibrate out, but it might be years or decades before that kind of before they actually do kind of reach parity. So I would basically, with any convex pegs, I would assume that there is going to be this discount, and it's not the worst thing in the world. So if you have FXS, you could buy up some cheap CVX FXS and use that to like kind of sit in there and hold like your convex FXS. Then if it does repeg, you're in great shape. And if you need to cash out, then it doesn't hurt as much, because that kind of 15% bonus you got when converting, as you kind of convert back the other way, you only lose so much, like you kind of even out. So that's my take on the convex CVX FXS pegs. It's like a little bit obnoxious. The other nice thing is, like, most of these convex pools are yielding 20, 30, 40% on curve, which means if you lose 15% because of the depeg, but you gain it back because you stake for a year, like, you still come out ahead. So that's kind of like my take on these. And then pitch FXS, like, just disaster territory. So I would stay away from pitch FXS. I don't know a ton about Balancer Wars, Solidly Wars, Velodrome, which is, I guess, a Velodrome race and not wars. Conic was discussed, and not much to talk about here except that they have basically like fairly decentralized the owners of CNC. So all this not financial advice. This is just what I know. All right, friends, coming up on an hour here. I know I said I would make it till sundown, but I'm not sure I have the steam to make it till sundown because I can smell breakfast cooking in the other room. Last minute questions before I talk about CurveUSD. Are there any other thoughts, questions, concerns, comments on DeFi? Maker. I talked a bit about Maker being used as collateral. So I would recommend the Barry Fried thread on why he argues it's not such a big deal. I'll go ahead and pull it up and run through it quickly. So history repeats, but history does not repeat exactly. It's more that history kind of rhymes somewhat. So the fact that they're using this as collateral, oh boy, my internet just got really slow. I guess it's not a thread. It's just a one-off tweet. But I think the big difference is that it's not exactly what you want to see, but the parameters are very different in that kind of Luna backing UST was in amounts and collateral ratios that could make it a systemic risk, whereas MKR is a much smaller amount of the backing of DAI, and it's I think its parameters are much different. So as Barry Fried points out here, well, yeah, my point is that the lack of an incentive to do so, high MCR plus IR plus supply caps that be put in place significantly disable something like this from happening. I would agree with this. I think the Maker team is not playing nearly so fast and loose with their protocol as Do Kwon did. I think Do Kwon did play fairly fast and loose, and as a result, some people were able to tank Luna and cause this sort of death spiral. I don't foresee a death spiral happening to Maker. Not financial advice. Other questions? Let's see. Thank you. Great insights. You're welcome. J Aura, keeping an eye on it, but don't know much about Zigzag. See, Kiro Kus is typing, so we will wait for Kiro Kus while I take one last drink of water. All right, then. Let's talk CurveUSD news. I know many of you are disappointed to see that CurveUSD still has not launched. And in the Telegram chat, Mitch explained the rationale for this, which was that there was yet another bug. These bugs that keep getting found end up being like very, very super tiny bugs that would probably not have been the end of the world, but it's better to solve them now, because if this bug was discovered after it launched, then it would require people to migrate, which is not what people want to see. What I can say is that Curve is working with auditors on CurveUSD, and the auditors are doing a very, very good job. So when the audits get released, I think you'll get to see how thorough the auditors are doing. There's a lot of complex math in CurveUSD, so it's really difficult to audit, and the auditors are doing a fantastic job of diving into it and stress testing it. I know it's multiple people on the Curve team are collaborating with the auditors on a frequent basis. So I would expect that when the auditors complete things and give it a clean bill of health is when we are going to see some more movement to launch it. I don't know when that's going to be. I still prefer the universe where we wait and we make sure that CurveUSD is resilient when it launches. And I also wouldn't get your hopes up, because my expectation, I've made this prediction before. My prediction is not financial advice again. My prediction is going to be that Curve price goes down after CurveUSD launches, because many factors, but one of which, the old saying, buy the rumor, sell the news. We're buy the rumor, soon it's going to be sell the news type thing. I think markets will be underwhelmed because CurveUSD is only mintable using Ethereum. At the moment, there's no Ethereum-backed stablecoin that has more than $1 billion in TVL. So I don't really think that we're going to see like $1 billion in CurveUSD just off of Ethereum as collateral. So So my hunch is that when Curve USD launches and doesn't hit $1 billion market cap, markets are going to react to that negatively. And then I think that sort of a final thing, Curve still has a lot of enemies, let me say. So there's a lot of VCs that despise Curve. You might have noticed if you read any like VC backed publications, they will always talk about Uniswap because Uniswap has a lot of like their tendrils in the VC ecosystem. They almost never talk about Curve, and then they do so very dismissively. So like read through the Masari final report of the 2022 and you'll see what I mean. So Curve did not give any preferential treatment to VCs. Curve did not like allow VCs to participate in any fashion except for just buying the Curve token on the open market. And a lot of VCs hate Curve as a result. It's funny how they're supposed to be these like people who are like there to see the future and shepherd gains for their LPs, and in fact they are just like really petty super left-wit following types who are badly driven by emotional grudges and herd mentality. They hate it because they didn't get an airdrop like they did with Uni. Exactly. So expect that there is a lot of VCs that would like nothing more than to see Curve tank and death spiral. So when Curve USD launches, wouldn't put it past them to try some monkey business. I don't know what form that will take. I'm just speculating and guessing here. But like they might like try and like do things like report Curve USD, file lawsuits against Curve if they find a way to do it. Buy up a lot of Curve and then dump it suddenly when Curve hits, Curve USD drops just so they have that token price go down. Just incredibly petty people. I feel glad they're not part of the ecosystem, given their pettiness, but that's just my prediction is what we're going to see when Curve USD launches. So anyway, that's the update on Curve USD. Maybe it happens soon. We're working with auditors, or Curve is working with auditors on it, so I would expect that you see it. I would expect that you see it like not in a weekend for sure, because what auditor is going to work on weekends? Sounds like there's no more questions. Sounds like there's no more comments. Thank you all for joining this Llama Party. At the very beginning, I was talking, I don't know if anyone was listening, but I did FOMO into ETH Denver. Is anyone going to ETH Denver? If anyone is going to ETH Denver, I'm super interested in trying to host a live Llama Party and keep it to the same spirit, kind of like Fridays, early-ish, but to do it in person. So like we have like a room somewhere and people can just like wander in and hang out. If you don't want to talk, you can like just sit in the audience. If you do want to hang out, you can like come up on stage or something. So maybe like we can like have people mingle, maybe get some drinks going that more time in the morning, probably coffee. But I think it'd be super fun. The thing I'm missing is like a venue, because I couldn't just do it in my hotel room. I don't think I couldn't do it at a coffee shop. So ideally there's like some like sponsoring protocol that could like help put up a room or something where it could host a live Llama Party. So if anyone is going to ETH Denver, or if anyone knows about that, or if anyone knows anything about parties, because I haven't been to a party in like 50 years. So I don't know like what a real party looks like. As you can tell, my parties are me sitting and talking to a computer by myself. So if anyone knows things about like how parties work in meat space, please give me a shout out, because I could use some help organizing, but I think it could be a blast. If not, then no Llama Party next week. And then for March, we'll have Llama Parties, knock on wood, with some amazing guests we have lined up. So I hope you'll all be able to join for that and ask some questions. All right, friends, I am out. Have proof of Llama. I will catch you all hopefully next week.
Bye.